Developing the Leader Within podcast, leading beyond limits.
Welcome back, everyone. If you haven't subscribed, please do so right now, as it'll help us get our show to others and help us get to our next milestone. And make sure to catch us streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire TV on the Purpose Place Network, and catch our exclusive members-only content Going Deeper Within on the Lions Guide Academy. And today we are speaking with Dr. Padric Hall. Dr. Hall is the Chief Data Officer for the U.S. Naval Forces Central Command 5th Fleet, and I haven't said that in quite a while since I retired, and a leading voice at the intersection of technology, innovation, and human connection, with a career spanning academia, military service, and global leadership. Dr. Hall brings a rare blend of technical expertise and visionary insight, shaping the next generation of data-driven leaders. Padric, welcome to the show.
Man, I'm glad to be here. Glad to, like I said, like I told you offline, man, proud of the work that you've been doing. You've been booked and busy for sure. And so I'm glad that you made some time just for little me.
Hey, we're glad to have you. And we will be speaking about Wired to Lead, the future of leadership in a tech-powered world. And this is all in where you are in your environment. But before we get into that conversation, Padric, tell us a little bit about you.
You think I would have it prepared about, who I am, and I don't, man. It always trips me up every time, no matter somebody asks me. That's because I have so many different things that I have done, and as I tell people all the time, I'm just trying to execute and play the instruments that God has given me. So, first off, I'll tell you, I'm 702 native, right? I keep the dice tatted on me wherever I go. Las Vegas, I will always take that wherever I go. Phoenix has been a second home to me. DMV has been a third home to me. And then, of course, globally and being abroad. I have a beautiful wife, Valerie, who, I know she loves watching these and watches me seeing in this element. Two beautiful boys. Our oldest is in the Navy actually right now. And so he actually just passed his FAA cert to be an air traffic controller. So really proud of him. And then our youngest he'll be 6 later this month. So that is me at the core, man. A family man. I love spending time with my family. And then we get into the other things, right? I've been a football coach before. I've coached collegiate athletes. I've coached professional athletes. I'm a speaker, right? I'm a technologist. I've been a data professional. I'm in uniform, so I've done that and still doing that. So just a numerous things that one would say I add to my resume, but really, I'm just a regular person who plays the instruments that God has given me.
Well, that's a powerful statement right there, because there's a lot that are not, right? So thank God for that.
Yeah.
And thank your son. He is an AC.
AC,
I,
yep.
yeah, I basically grew up side by side with the ACs. I'm an AG. And
Okay.
so weather
I
and
know
air
AG.
traffic controllers,
What?
yeah.
I
So
know AG to the death. So I'm Intel, and I tell people all the time, yo, it's two things that I need that I can never live without. Number one, I need my me talk folks, right? Yeah, I don't care what type of mission we got going on. If the weather ain't happening, it ain't happening. And number two, I need my six. I need my IPs, right? I gotta have comms. If we ain't got comms, we screwed. So forget everything else. I know all those other missions and all those other three. I got it. Threes, the one it makes sense. The YNs, cool, got it. But if you ain't got comms, if you ain't got weather, forget about it.
that's a fact. Yeah. So also enjoyed my time with the Intel folks. Basically, we followed them on every brief. And so so it was a good journey. But we're talking about technology, and as technology continues to transform how we operate and communicate, and we talked about comms, what do you believe are the most critical ways leaders can strategically integrate technology to enhance mission effectiveness and team performance?
Yeah, really, really long and powerful question, and try to keep it brief, or at least to what that the folks can follow. So I think the first thing that we have to do is establish that, technology should not be adopted just because it's new. Right? You shouldn't just do something just to do it. There needs to be a purpose. So understanding the why and getting your stakeholders to buy off collectively that this is the why and the operational outcome we are trying to achieve. It's when I've found in my career that when people just throw a new toy at it and then like you trying to make a triangle fit in a square box that's only meant for a circle, that's when the frustration comes, and that's when I've been able to see, the technological project progress really stops. And then you get to sailor frustration, sailor, cussing out the software product engineer because it doesn't work and it was never worked like that, etc. So understanding the why, understanding the purpose, getting buy off on that, I think that's the first piece that I'd recommend to anybody, whether it be military or non-military. And then the second thing is to understand that technology is there to enhance and to make our decision making speedier, right? It's not there to replace the human. Could we get there one day? Possibly, maybe 2050. I know we've all seen iRobot. We possibly could get there, but there are still decisions that need to be made in human form. And I specifically thought about this on the way to this interview. And I said, the one thing that senior leaders have to go through in the Navy is, or in any organization, is they have to decide, are they comfortable sending that sailor, that boy or girl, into harm's way and they not come home? Because they're the ones who have to go and knock on the door and look that mama in the face and say, "Hey, mom, I'm the one that made the decision for your baby boy, your baby girl, and I'm sorry that they're no longer here." Computers cannot do that. There's no computer that's going to roll up, down the corner and knock on the door and start talking to a human. So, for me, I think humans will always be in the loop, human in the loop. There will always be a human in the loop. And now we use technology to aid and assist and to help the computer, to help the human either think about something that we haven't thought about, speed up a decision point, and or maybe counteract what we are thinking because we all have our own bias.
Yeah, absolutely. And your first part of that kind of has to hit the early adopters pretty hard because
Yep.
I consider myself an early adopter, but not
Okay.
if it doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
Because you got to see the sense in it. And if it makes sense, then hey, adopt it early if you like, if you want to wait. But it is something to think about, not to jump on everything just because it just came out. It
Right.
actually does have to make sense, and it does have to have the appropriate impact on your organization or your teams. So thank you
You-
for sharing that.
Oh man, of course.
Now, with increased reliance on digital tools and AI, how can leaders maintain authentic human connection and trust within their teams while still embracing technology efficiency?
Yeah, really good question, man. So again, as I was, pondering and I'm thinking about this as I'm running last night and working out, I said, man, you know what? At the foundation of everything, trust is still the same. Right? Trust is the same way that I trust you and you trust me in this conversation is the same way we trust technology. Right? People who have Teslas, they trust their cars. Some would argue they trust their vehicles more than they trust people because they can sit back, go to sleep, no hands, and that car got to still drive, and hopefully it gets them there successfully. So and you look at trust. What are the pillars of trust? Right? Consistency, integrity, being available or being present. And so when we weave technology in there, technology is just the platform or the apparatus, but that trust still has to be there. And I think now this is probably going to make some senior leaders a little bit upset. And I'm going to say I'm sorry now, even though if you know me, this is pretty normal, right? We have to stop hiding behind dashboards and numbers and like platforms. Like we need to understand what the digital environment is and how does that feel to the human. Because no matter what dashboard I make, no matter what platform I make, no matter what UI I make, if the human doesn't feel that the data is accurate and there's a trust factor there, they're not going to use it. And I know you've seen it many times in your AG career. I've seen it from a non-AG perspective, like all these different weather models. I'm talking to my agency one day, and I'm like, hey, Chief, why do you use this weather model over this weather model? And he was like, oh, because it's always wrong. I'm like, but this is like no, this is like the national weather platform system. He was like, yeah, it never works for what we needed to because of we're in this type of environment. I'm like, well, dang. Have you ever talked to them about it? Like, you ever talked to them trying to fix it? Like, yeah, but they got backlog, they got other priorities. There's no funding. Like, so it's the trust factor. Um, it's the trust factor that has to be there, right? The last thing I'll say is AI. Excuse me, AI can absolutely automate things, but to be a leader, you still have to be able to connect to the people. I'm sure you've seen it plenty of times when you've been roaming the deck plates, right? We've all had those leaders that you look back and you say like, well, they never really were on the deck plates. They led up here, but they didn't have a pulse with the people. They didn't have a pulse with the shipmates and with the ship. And once you lose that pulse, bombs away.
Absolutely. Now, we talk about technology, and yes, I have been one of those that said, okay, favor this one over this one for this situation, given this parameters. And they all have their limitations and obviously benefits. But technology gives leaders access to more data than ever before. So, how can leaders ensure they're using data driven insights effectively without becoming overly reliant on the numbers and losing sight of intuition and experience?
Yeah, this is a really good one here. I think people forget that your gut is data. The way you feel when what is the TV show? Stranger Things. Big Stranger Things fan. Can't wait for the next season to come up. I forgot his name. I think it's Mike. But when Mike gets that little feeling, that sensor feeling on the back of his neck and the hair start to stand up, that's data telling him, hey, something is about to occur that you may want to fight or flight about. So, understanding that you are already doing data-driven decisions is just not maybe the data that you are recognizing, or it's not the data that someone may want you to use. That's the first thing. The second thing is data is not 100% the 100% accurate truth, right? Data reveals a snapshot that has been recorded. In one of my other hats, I am a dissertation coach, and I was actually working with one of my students, dissertation chair, working with one of my students last night, and they were talking about, they were looking at Asian American hate crimes and how they reported, and basically saying like it's what we call secondary data. And so essentially, somebody has already gathered the data, reported it, and now my student, is using their reports to now help generate their dissertation and to report on that. And I said, well, what about the data that's not reported? Right? Does that mean that there were no Asian American hate crimes? Or does it mean that nobody, just captured the data and filled it out? We do not know. That is a gap that we have. So it's difficult for us to say that only 20% of, hate crimes were Asian American in this one small town, when there could be, 80% more. It was just never captured, or it didn't meet a certain threshold. So that is what I mean by data is not necessarily 100% gospel, because there's probably going to be some gaps in there. So what do I tell people? I tell people, you use the term, I'm making the decision with the most available data present. And so when you're looking at that, like, hey, this is what I have at this time, right? If I hindsight's 2020. If I get more and more data feeds thrown at me, then I probably will make a different decision. In the world that we live in, we don't have time. The only thing we can do is hopefully live to see the going back, and then we could see, okay, maybe I should have looked at this, et cetera. So, you do the best decision that you have with the different blended analytics that you have, and use your operational experience, use your instinct. Those are all data points. Um, Now, in wearing one of my other hats as the CDO, this is where I come in, is to ensure, to one, that the data that you do have is as accurate as possible. And two, how can I feed you more gaps of the missing data that you may have in a faster timeline? And then the last one is something that, we really hope to get to is how can I decrease your decision-making space, right? How can I increase some of the things that you would kind of question and think about? How can I put that in front of you and say, oh, well, did you think about, oh, yep, it's already there. Okay, cool. Check. I don't need to think about that because I got that answer. Well, let me think about, oh, nope, it's right here. It's coming up right here. Okay, I'm seeing my maintenance feed, seeing my maintenance windows. I'm seeing the schedule and when this ship's supposed to be. Got it. Okay, now I'm on to the next thing. Now I can make a more informed decision. So that's kind of how I take the data approach. Again, you have to look at the entire circumference of the world around you, and ultimately, it's that leader's job and their duty to make the best decision that they do that they believe is fitting.
As a weather forecaster, you was talking, I was remembering there are posits and there are reports and observations, and we take those that are there and a snapshot of time, obviously. But when
Yeah.
we go do a forecast, there are this what we refer to data sparse areas,
Okay.
meaning there are no data points, but given the data's around them, we can extrapolate or interpret what is in the missing area, right? But it's still a guess, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to be careful with the data that you have, and also look at those areas that and consider those areas that
Right.
don't have the data to back up whatever prognosis or forecast or anything decision making that you have to do. Now, in your experience with the Navy's Fifth Fleet, what leadership lessons have you learned about balancing innovation and cybersecurity and ethical responsibility in a tech driven environment?
Yeah, this was a fun one. I was waiting for this question. My N6, he's now Indo-PACOM, good brother. Uh, he would love this. So, your technological advances are only as good as the infrastructure that you have. And I know people will say, well, yeah, duh, that makes sense. But you got to hear me on this. It makes sense, and sometimes I think it almost makes too much of sense, right? If you have bad feet, it does not matter what your upper body looks like. You could bench 500 pounds, but if you can barely walk, is that 500 pounds really useful? So it's no different when we look at technology and infrastructure, and that's why I open this with my meet talk and my IP or my crippies or my comms guys. Like those are my, and when I say guys and girls as well, right? Sailors, girls, and guys. Those are my most important folks because they are my foundation. Anything that I do sits on top of them. They are the base layer. And it's no different with technology. I could tell you a few projects where we wanted to further robust and introduce some different data servers, decrease some latency, make some different data feeds faster. But when we looked at our data center, it wasn't up to speed. It wasn't up to snuff. Some of the cables and the data hops were very old, needed to be replaced. And again, this is where it now comes to funding and priorities. Are you in an area that the Navy is high on the priority list? And so we weren't. So some of that technology we were unable to take advantage of, even though we knew it would help solve the problem and knew we would get our commander faster to his KEIs or his key enabling initiatives or his priorities. There was just nothing that we could do because we were, limited by that particular infrastructure. So that was one of the lessons between a cybersecurity and an innovative standpoint. That was the biggest eye opener to me. Has does not matter what type of technology, what type of version software you have, does not matter at all. If it cannot run on the physical infrastructure, and this even goes to cloud too. I know I got to have my cloud folks out there talking about, hey, well, that's why we put things in the cloud. Your cloud still has to sit on some sort of data center. It still has to run through some sort of pipes and some sort of bandwidth at a networking step side and etc. So if you don't have the trunks that are available for that, then that data can't get through from a cloud perspective. So really, again, invest at the foundation and do the basics right. Again, I know it is super simple and it makes a lot of sense, but you probably would not be surprised. But I think a lot of your audience would be surprised how the foundations are a lot are very wobbly, and so we're asked to now throw, a Corvette and a Lamborghini on uh, Hyundai tires.
Yeah, and that won't get you too far with that torque. So, yes, consider that, folks. And yes, it does make sense, but it's amazing how the things that make sense get the least attention. And so that's what happens in the long run. Now, as we look to the future of leadership, what mindset or skill set do you believe leaders must develop today to remain effective and adaptable in tomorrow's increasingly technological world?
If I could be cliche, I'm going to use the word that was in your question is adaptability. And I find this in myself, right? I always been able to pivot before there was a need to pivot into what was next. And I talk about just in degrees, right? I have a BS in urban planning. I have a MS in GIS, which is the Geographical Information Systems, and a PhD in data science and business analysis. And it seemed like at each turning point, I was always just a little bit before the curve before it became a need for them. I can vividly remember in my senior year of my bachelor's, thinking about going into GIS because of one of my mentors. And I remember looking in parking garages and like imagining and dreaming that there were sensors above each parking stall that would tell you whether or not it was available or not available. And now that's kind of like a standard practice. And I remember in just certain parking garages in Phoenix that was beginning to roll out. And it was like we only did 1/4 of the garage because we didn't really know how it was going to work. And now you see it every day. So being adaptable, how you led yesterday is not how you it is probably not how you will lead tomorrow. And I think that, that's again one of the things that challenges some of our senior leaders in the military and all organizations is, the military is different from when, some folks were in. It's different leaders now. It's a different fight now. Not more of a ground, but more of a cyber type of a challenge. And so the way that you lead those individuals, those troops, you have to adapt. You have to always, be on the front end and saying, okay, maybe I could yell at this group of people. Maybe this group of people will not, they don't respond to that. Maybe I just walk in. Maybe I just walk in and sit down and just kind of use facial expressions, and maybe that's enough. Right? It is no different. It's no different with children, right? The way that I lead, or the way that well, now my oldest is an adult, so now we are friends. Uh, but the way that I parent, my oldest is not the way that I parent my youngest. Two different people, two different mannerisms, two different mindsets, two different ages. And so I would see, why would it be any different when we look at technology? Um, there was a few weeks ago, there was Chat GPT version X, and today we're on Chat GPT version Y. It's the same thing. The things that it's no different. So why would we expect anything to be different just when it comes to technology? Um, so adaptability, and I also think constructing teams that can thrive even when the technology changes overnight. Um, Technology is moving a lot faster than what we are. And a lot of times we are trying to catch up. So if you have a team that's kind of stuck and they cannot pivot and catch on to things and grab things and be adaptable and be flexible, that's going to limit your progress and your success rate. But if you have a team that's constantly, scouring the tech pages, looking at the tech forums. That's why we have these conferences, is to see what's next. Like what is next and what's new coming out from platforms that can help and aid capabilities. So if you have those personnel that's always trying to, push the envelope, push the boundary, right? I remember, and you probably remember a time where UUVs and underwater vehicles wasn't really a thing. And now we have entire offices dedicated to just underwater manned platforms. So again, it's pushing the boundary, being not being afraid to create some resistance, and being confident in that and knowing like, hey, I'm only one break away. I'm going to figure this out. So a long answer, but I would say just being adaptable, being flexible.
Absolutely. And we've heard it before. What got you here won't get you there. Right? And it truly is a foundational statement. You cannot lead the same way. Me going back in 10 years later, although I have a good grasp on interpersonal relationships, how to get to the heart of people.
Yeah,
Still, the environment is fully changed,
yeah,
right? And so, even I, with having that ability, will still have a challenge to try to figure out what the setting is, what the environment is, what they're used to now versus what was when I was in. Now,
yeah.
thank you for sharing all that. And I know folks are probably wondering, hey, what is this guy up to? What do you have coming up? Where can the viewer or the listener follow you or support you?
Yeah, man. No, so I appreciate the platform and being just an invited guest on here to just to have a conversation. You can follow me on LinkedIn, right? That's my most used platform right now. I'm enjoying the conversations in there, enjoying and seeing just the dialogue. A lot of people, right? I think I'd be remiss if I said that, a lot of people who are not going through challenging times at the moment, right? We know, the government is shut down. We know military is kind of tough with some things, and so just for people to know that they are not alone. They are not alone, and to find strength in sharing your story. There, I guarantee you, there are other people who are experiencing the same thing, and maybe your version or maybe your opinion and thoughts is the breakthrough that they're waiting for. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, hopefully I will have some commencements coming up. I'm kind of making my transition back from overseas tours, and so really number one, spending time with the family, right, giving back to them because they allow me to give so much to others. And we'll see what happens. Nothing on the radar right now. Have some things in the works, maybe a couple conferences, and like I said, hopefully a couple of commencements. But stay tuned. And like I said, in LinkedIn, reach out and we can talk, coffee, whatever it is. I love doing this again. Giving back to so many people who've given to me.
Outstanding, folks. We will have his link for LinkedIn on the show notes, part of the video, so you can connect with him, support him in all his endeavors. And today's episode is sponsored by the Global Trends Magazine, the Outlier Project, Fantail Services, Ascend Meditations, and Chop AI. And if you've enjoyed this episode and learned something interesting about the topic covered today, make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and let us know by leaving a comment. Tune in next week for another episode where we dissect leadership from another angle. And as we like to end the show, success to you.